In this video, I'll show you how easy it is to use your miniatures in multiple different games, saving you time and money. Every game is miniatures agnostic if you believe in yourself. You've probably heard me say that before if you've been watching this channel for some time. And indeed, it is true. You can use any models for any game when it's you and your friends playing. Now, before some of you even mention it, yes, if you go to big official tournaments like the Las Vegas Open, where I was last week, and my voice is still not quite right yet, then you need to use official Games Workshop models to play Warhammer for the most part. But the GW models don't just have to be used in GW games. If you've gotten yourself some Games Workshop miniatures, but maybe you're finding the Games Workshop rules for those miniatures not to your liking, or maybe you just want to try other games to see what they're like, then you can use those Games Workshop miniatures that you spent money and time on to play other games. It sounds obvious, but some folks think that game rules from one system won't work with miniatures from another system. Sometimes that's kind of true if you're trying to stay at least partially representative. Let me explain. Miniatures wargames can be played with literally anything. You could use different colored dice as your miniatures to represent your units in the game, or you could use coins or small pieces of paper. As long as each player can differentiate between the objects, then they'll do the job. However, most folks kind of prefer the immersion that actual miniatures bring to the literal table. It's kind of a big part of the hobby, if I'm honest. And while you could use Battletech mechs to represent Eldar or goblins to represent Space Marines, it's generally more immersive if you don't. That said, it's up to you. When I'm trying to learn the rules of a new game, I use all kinds of weird models to represent units in this new game, whatever is closest at hand. For me, I generally need to know I like the rules before I spend time building models for it. If the models are kind of generic, for lack of a better word, then I'm less cautious about buying and building and painting them, right? Like space soldiers or fantasy wizards or whatever can be easily swapped into all kinds of different games, so I find them, safer to invest time and money in. But this video is about you, the owner of some Games Workshop models that you probably paid a lot for, and you'd like to get more use out of them in other game rules. Again, maybe you're unhappy with the current state of the rules that you bought these miniatures for, or maybe you just want to try some other games. Maybe you just want to grab a few models from your army, from your army game, and then try a skirmish rule set instead, for example. It's easy to do, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples to help you figure it out. Probably the easiest rule sets to transition to from Games Workshop games are the one-page rules games. These rule sets are very inclusive of the Games Workshop models. They know that many people have GW models, since they're the biggest in the industry. Therefore, they've made the units in their games very compatible with Games Workshop miniatures. Not every miniature from GW is represented directly in one-page rules, but a lot of them are. For these examples, I'm going to stick with sci-fi, but one-page rules also makes an entire line of fantasy rule sets as well, if you want to try that out. The rules to the one-page rules games are free to try out, kind of like a stripped-down version of the rule set. But for $5, you can get the full game PDF that has all the rules, plus tons of advanced rules that are all kind of modular and can be added or not added depending on how you and your friends like to play. One of the best parts of the games is the online list builder called OPR Army Forge. It's better than pretty much any other online list builder that I've come across. It's easy to use, and the army list sheet that it produces when you're done building the list has all of your special rules for your force listed on it, which means less having to go back and refer to the book to look up all your special rules. They're all right there. So for these examples, I'm going to start with my Imperial Guard combat patrol that I painted after 10th edition Warhammer 40,000 came out last summer or the summer before, whatever. I really like the models, but I find that I haven't really been playing Combat Patrol too much. I'll start with a 300-point Human Defense Force list for the Grimdark Future Firefight, which is the sci-fi skirmish game from one-page rules, right? There's Grimdark Future, which is the army game, Grimdark Future Firefight, which is the skirmish game. Being a skirmish game, I certainly won't be able to use all the models from the Combat Patrol into, just one list, but I'll be able to use a decent amount, especially at 300 points. If you want to use fewer models, then you can build 200 points instead. Starting with a hero unit, I picked the company leader profile for Major Karsk from the thing and, from the Combat Patrol there, and gave her the Master Plasma Pistol and Energy Sword to match the loadout required for that model in the Combat Patrol list, so that she still looks, WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get, as much as possible. I also gave her the Commander upgrade, which gives her the double time order. This allows her to move up to 3 friendly units within 12 inches of her, up to 6 inches before attacking, Honestly, it was just because I had 25 points left over at the end of my list building that I kind of needed to spend. I'm not what you would call good at strategery. Then I looked at the command squad in the Combat Patrol and decided to use some of them as veterans in Grimdark Future Firefight. The veteran guardsman with the regimental standard, the big flag, was something I really wanted in this group because it looks really cool. So I made a veteran with company standard in the OPR rules. I also wanted the veteran guardsman with the Medipack in there, so I had him as a veteran with medical training, again, in the OPR rules. I really wanted the guy with the Power Fist and the Bolt Pistol, but there's no Power Fist in Grimdark Future Firefight, for this particular faction. Now, I could have decided to use the Energy Axe profile to kind of counts as the Power Fist, but I decided against it. You can and should do what you want. Instead, I decided for my third veteran in the list to be the regular veteran guardsman with the lasgun, and to make that person carrying demo charges, which can only be used once per game, but they pack a large punch. After I was happy with my company leader and her veterans, I had used 160 of my 300 points, and it was time to start adding regular infantry to my list. Those units act kind of oddly for a skirmish game. In most skirmish games, usually each single unit in the game is a single model. It's part of what I like about skirmish games, frankly. In Grimdark Future Firefight, some units are actually tiny squads of 3, which I wasn't really interested in at first when I first got into the game, but I've come to appreciate it in armies with very expensive, points-wise, models like the Imperial Guard, aka, in this situation, the Human Defense Force. Therefore, the last 3 units I'll add to this 300-point list will be 3 infantry squads of 3 models each. I'm not going to customize them too much, really, individually, but I will give one of the 3 models in each of these 3 little micro squads a different weapon besides the standard rifle, right? One squad will get a model with a plasma rifle, because I love plasma, and one will get a model with a grenade launcher, while the last one will get a model with a flamethrower. There are other options available both in the Grimdark Future Firefight rules and in, Combat Patrol models that I'm pulling from, but these choices worked best for me and also fit best, points-wise. So there's 300 points of Human Defense Force pulled out of the, Games Workshop Imperial Guard Combat Patrol. Well, the old Imperial Guard Combat Patrol, unfortunately. Currently, this box isn't even listed on the GW website anymore because I assume a new one is coming to replace it, since they released, a bunch of the Death Corps Krieg guys and all that kind of stuff or whatever. I'm not sure what will be in this new box, but I'm sure that you'll be able to make a cool Human Defense Force list for Grimdark Future Firefight with it. If you want the same figures as the ones that I used here, then hit up your local independent game stores and see if they still have this box in stock. They might. Now, if you're looking for something even more indie than one-page rules that allows you complete customization of the stats for each model, and also all the equipment and all that kind of stuff, then let me show you what I did with my Imperial Guard and Space Weirdos, a skirmish game that I've enjoyed for quite some time now. Pachow. That's also only $5. In this game, you build lists to 75 points if you're going to play on a 2-foot by 2-foot board, or 125 points if you're planning on playing on a 3-foot by 3-foot board. Let's go a little bigger and do 125 points. The rules state that the leader can be 25 points max, and the other figures can only be 20 points max each. This is a good guideline to have, in my opinion. It keeps you on track. I decided to make my leader in this list be the Power Fist guy that I couldn't use in my OPR list. I decided his Power Fist would be best as a large powered weapon from the Space Weirdos Close Combat Weapon list, and I made his bolt pistol to be a heavy pistol from the ranged weapons list. I gave him maxed out prowess, one of his stats, for melee, and then also maxed out firepower for shooting. And then also was able to give him cybernetics, which I thought made sense with the Power Fist part, and then the special leader ability, Tactician. Then I made another guy that I'm kind of calling Sarge in my head, with a powered weapon, an auto pistol, and a stealth suit. I also made a plasma guy, again, I love plasma, and used the energy rifle stat line for his plasma gun. I also made a flamer guy who is basically the same as the plasma guy, but used the flamethrower stat line instead of, Then I made 3 regular troopers with auto rifles, which basically are swapping out this for their las guns, and melee weapons, not powered ones, just, they got a knife in their belt or whatever. And then I gave them all jump packs, too. Now, they're not modeled with jump packs, those particular models, but in my head canon, if you will, they have gravity field generators on their belts or, something like that. The thing that's great about rule sets like Space Weirdos, and there's also Sword Weirdos if you're into, more fantasy type stuff, is that the weapons and equipment are kind of vague, so you can make your stat lines fit to most models and the stuff that they're equipped with. While there's no powered armor in the equipment list, there is heavy armor that you could use for, let's say, Space Marine models, for example. There's a lot more of this means this in the one-page rules games, but more generalized rules like Space Weirdos allow you to use a wider range of models. So that's 2 separate rule sets I was able to port the figures from my Imperial Guard Combat Patrol into: Grimdark Future Firefight and Space Weirdos. Both skirmish games, both $5 for the rules, and both pretty customizable to allow you to use the models that you bought and built and painted the way that you want to play. Do you have a favorite miniature agnostic rule set that you like to use with your miniatures? Let us all know down in the comments below. If you want to help out with the channel here a little bit, a depressmentation of the like button while you're down there would also help quite a great deal. And also, while you're down there, if you want to see more videos like this every single Friday, there's also a subscribe button you can hit. It's for free. Thanks for watching.